Welcome back, everybody, to The Quad on a very, very special week. And I'm here with my incredible co-host, Emily Schrader, human rights activist and journalist, Shoshana Keats-Jaskal, who is the founder of Chokhmat Nashim, elevating women's voices in the Orthodox world, fighting discrimination, and Barbie Hella, all the way from Hollywood, actress, podcaster, one-woman show, The Works. And you know, since the beginning of this show, we started this show, I think a week and a half, 2 weeks after October 7th. And every single week, we finished this show with a prayer that our hostages would come home. And no, they're not all home. But yesterday we had that moment of light, that moment of a breath of relief that these 3 young women, that God knows what they've been through, and we will discover that in the weeks coming, came home and hugged their mums and their families. And I don't think there was one person in the whole country and the whole world, the whole Jewish world at least, who wasn't stuck to the TV watching, where our hearts were screaming with joy. And at the same time, just next to that joy, which actually Jewish people are very good at putting tragedy and celebration next to each other, we have the pain of a deal that was made that releases hundreds of deadly killers, people who have killed hundreds of Israelis, hundreds of Jews throughout the last few decades, and they're now going free on the streets. And so it's always, and this is, I guess, the Jewish symptom. It's like, you know, when you get married, you're supposed to be happy. You break the glass to remember Jerusalem, though we still don't have it's kind of a thing with Jews. We can't be completely happy. But even yesterday, we can't be completely happy. We don't know whether the other 30 are getting out. We don't know whether then the other 60-odd are getting out. We don't know whether we're going to get to the second phase of this deal, because we're dealing with terrorists who do not respect deals, for God's sake. And then we're paying with the price of people with blood on their hands who killed so many innocents. And so I couldn't think of a better place to unpack this than with my sisters over here. Emily, you were live broadcasting yesterday. So you were actually talking to an audience whilst you were seeing what was going on. Your thoughts?
I mean, it was really, really overwhelming to see it at the same time you're literally anchoring.
Yeah.
You know, like the news is coming in as it's happening. So I have all the normal emotions of like being scared that something is going to go wrong and something is going to happen, while also watching 4 or 5 different feeds. I had like Al Jazeera, I had another Palestinian source, I had Reuters, and I had Israeli news, and they're all in different places. So we have like the prisoners, because there were protests yesterday outside of the Israeli prisons about the release of prisoners, which we'll get to. But we also had ones of the army with the helicopters arriving. We had at the border. We had from inside Gaza. And the scenes inside Gaza, I mean, I remember when they first showed up, like on the footage, and I like had to remind myself to continue speaking, because it was so, we had a panel, and the whole panel, when I saw the other guests' faces, I thought, oh yeah, that's exactly how I feel. We were kind of like,
correct me if I'm wrong, the last time when we had, over a year ago, the first hostage deal that got out over 100 hostages, we didn't have that. First of all, it was at night, if I'm not mistaken, or most of the releases of the hostages were in the evening. But to decide to hand over those 3 women in a mob of...
No, they did.
Some of them were men before, who with guns, of terrorists, men with guns, the cowards with their faces covered, yes, because you know we're going to come and get you. To have that, it's a miracle, really, that the handover didn't somehow get out of control, right?
I was watching those women sprint from the one van to the other. I just kept thinking, I can't believe they're doing this to them. I can't believe, after everything they went through, and I remember we know this from the last hostage, they didn't know what was happening. No, so we don't know what they knew. We don't know what they thought was happening. And even if you think you know, you've been in terrorist hands for 471 days, and you could be being led out to be lynched into the streets. And when you see mobs like that, people that you've seen literally for the past year plus, holding you hostage and having killed your family. Remember, their families are killed.
Yes.
Their dogs were killed. Yes. They don't know who survived.
Yeah.
There's no question in my mind that they were thinking, there's a really good chance that I'm going to be pulled out of this car and completely lynched in public. And the trauma, and then they give them
Bears, gift bags, like the world's worst bar mitzvah. What is wrong with it? Like, they got a certificate. Here you go, 471 days in Hamas Club Med.
With photos.
With photos.
So nauseating. But I want to say something about the journalists because I was watching 11 and 12, the feeds kept going on and off.
Weren't watching me.
I'm sorry, Emily, I didn't know. Bigness, but here. I'll pay for it later. There were broadcasters like bawling, blowing noses, hysterically crying. It was so moving and making the brachot of like Shechianu and Matir Asurim. And then did you see, they put, I don't remember her name, but they put one on her shoulders from Emily's family and friends who were waiting for her. They put the newscaster on his shoulders as she's broadcasting. I was like, this is the most Israeli thing I've ever seen in my life. It was fabulous. So like you had that joy.
You had that joy.
Yeah.
Such a Jewish joy. Thanking God, giving prayers to God. I love that part. But
I feel like it's just theater for the Hamasniks.
Yes.
And it makes me really sad that this is the only thing that's getting attention, even though obviously it should be getting attention. But this is happening all over the world. This is not just an Israel problem. There are people being held hostage and being killed and being abused like this all over the world. And yet, for some reason, the Jewish people and people who live in Israel, Jews, Muslims, Druze, Christians, they are always the center of attention. What's Israel going to do with these 100 people who I care very deeply about? And people kept writing to me yesterday saying, you have to say something about how hard the deal is and how difficult this is for us. And I say, you know what? I'm so grateful that this is hard for us. We live in a world right now where people have lost their moral compass and they're saying, it's a good deal, it's a bad deal, I don't know. Should we give these people back for this and that? This is the only country in the world that is being put under the microscope, and we care so much about human life and human death and the dignity of the bones of the Jewish people and really any citizen of Israel, Christian, Druze, Muslim, that we would be willing to fight this way and give back over 1,000, I believe, is the number, check me if I'm wrong, convicted terrorists for one body. We didn't know if for sure, because we can't believe them. Are they alive? Are they dead? But to bury one, we are willing to do this. What other country in the world would be willing to do that? You tell me.
You know, even I just want to add to that. When you look at some of the prisoners who are listed in the first 33 of phase 1 of this deal, among them is, of course, Avera Mengistu, who's been held for 10 years, Israeli Jew of Ethiopian descent. And then you also have Hisham al-Sayed, who's an Arab Israeli. And they were included in this hostage deal to the point where, you know, the citizens who are being released, the Israeli Jewish citizens who were kidnapped October 7th, their key is one civilian exchanged for the release of 30 terrorists. That's the average. For the soldiers, they said it was one for every 50. For the case of Hisham and Avera, Israel is paying 30 terrorists per individual plus 57 more terrorists, meaning that the state of Israel is willing to sacrifice even more terrorists to get back an Arab Muslim Israeli. And this is the values of the state of Israel. I think there's no better example. And it's just so backwards when you hear people saying like, oh, Israel's racist, Israel's apartheid, it's absurd.
Well, it's
absurd.
And it's a lie, but they know it's a lie. That's part of the whole demonization of the Jewish people. Now, you know, this is why I've ceased to get upset when you see the lies, because even if they believe it or not, it doesn't matter anymore. It's all part of the same demonization. They don't care about anybody else. They don't care about the real demons. But then they make us into demons. And so, like, honestly, you like you said, the toilet bowl, Twitter, the toilet bowl of our lives, I've ceased to let it get to me because we know the truth, and the truth is exactly what Emily just said. We know who we are. We know that we fight for everybody equally. We know what society that we're building here. We know we have equality. And if these people choose to take the narrative, which is a complete lie, then that's your problem, people. And in the end, you're going to pay for that lie, and it's going to come and bite you in the tuchus. Now, let's talk a little bit about that price that we're paying. I've been getting messages all week from friends who were in terror attacks, from friends who had an uncle killed in a terror attack.
We know numerous families whose killers of their loved ones are being released.
Hengries, for example, Halo Fall's brother, killed in American citizens who are going to be these terrorists who killed, who have blood on their hands, who the one who I'm most moved by is the Israeli journalist Shirky.
Yes.
Yair Shirky's brother was killed 10 years ago. This guy hasn't even served 10 years, the murderer of this journalist's brother. And you know what the journalist said? They said to him, how do you feel about this, Yair Shirky? And he said, you know, it's horrible, it's re-traumatizing, but Emily and Romy are still alive and my brother's dead. Yeah. And just so that's the value of life you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, I think there's two issues. Like one is, okay, these people have to serve their debt. Whatever that means, that's what you say when people are in prison, they serve their debt to society. But it's more than that, right? Are they going to, God forbid, hurt someone else? Because if it's simply an issue of they get to live outside of prison, I don't give a shit. Okay, and then you'll go to hell and I don't care because I believe in that stuff, right? But the question is, are they going to be able to hurt someone else? And that's the real concern here, right?
60% of them go back to terrorism.
Of course. So we're told
out of a hostage jail.
So we're told that murderers will not be allowed back into Yudun Shamron, or Yerushalayim, that they'll only be sent to Gaza. But like,
No, yeah, the murderers, yes. But terrorists are also being released into West Bank, Judea and Samaria, and also East Jerusalem.
Yes, right here, which is a kilometer from here, everyone.
I don't know why Ireland doesn't take them again. I mean, they took a few during the Second Intifada, and they just love Palestinian terrorists so much.
Take them, right?
They should take them all.
You know,
take them all.
I was thinking, did I hear something correctly that they wanted to send some of them to Indonesia?
that was Trump's idea.
Trump said what?
Trump's idea.
Sent to Indonesia during a period of rebuilding.
Is it a bad idea?
I'm not going to get into that.
Maybe not for the Indonesians.
I'm assuming you saw the clip of the Golden Girls talking about giving the Palestinians Greenland, because that, and you have to show that because that is hilarious. It was like, oh, she's so prescient, like prescient, how do you say that? From like, I don't even know, 30 years ago was the Golden Girls? Very, very forward thinking.
No, well, the question really is what's going to happen now. And I had an interesting comment. Somebody wrote to me on, a lot of people are saying, well, they won. So at the same time, people, at the same time, we genocided them and starved them. Meanwhile, they're all alive, still with guns, and they're all looking rather porky. Just saying. I don't see anybody who's lost a meal over there. And so that's just
They don't feel word praise stuff from us for the food that they were eating. But
so many smart people are saying these are the only people who have been genocided and yet are victorious at the end of the war.
At the same time.
What is it? Did we commit a genocide or did you win? Because I don't think the two can live side by side. But only you can pull off the two things living side by side.
Well, if anyone could do it, the Palestinians could do it. But, we didn't speak about, you said, talk about who comes out, and there's this, I think there's a whole nother aspect of it, like this public face of it, right? Yeah. Like Khalida Jarrar, who is one of the females who was just let out. She was leading or a very big part of the PFLP, which is a terrorist organization, which was responsible for the murder of, please remind me, Rina? Schneur. Hashem Yikom Dama. But people are using a picture from 2015 when she had nice silky black hair and juxtaposing it to a picture of her coming out of jail 7-8 years later, however, without having her hair dye. So acting like this is proof of torture and solitary confinement and genocide in the jails. And Fleur, you had the best line.
Look, you leave me anywhere for 5 weeks without a hairdresser or some hair dye, and I look like that.
It's not pretty. You still look better. I'm still her friend.
In COVID, after 4 weeks, I'm like, people are going to find out what my real hair color is.
I said this with Bruce. COVID was rough.
COVID was rough for all of us. Hair women who color their hair. That's ridiculous. For God's sake, this is the proof of torture that your hair's white?
Right. Right, and then
what is that I'm going to say? She's done it deliberately.
But at the end of the day, she was a convicted felon. She was
No, she was also the head of an NGO in the West for Palestinian prisoner rights.
Yes, I forget.
Yeah,
there's all those nonprofits in America also that are pro-Palestinian are all perfect, and no one is shouting death to all Jews, of course.
The NGO that she was the head of also received tens of thousands of dollars from European governments.
Yes. And probably CAIR.
Yes, absolutely. But again, they try and make, this moral equivalency that they try and make between convicted killers and innocent people taken from their beds, including, let's not forget, 2 babies. We don't even know. We don't even know. They're supposed to be, I think, next or the second or the third release. Oh, and the other thing is they're drip feeding us these releases. We're all going to be in torture for the next 6 weeks.
100%
For the next 6 weeks,
Without
every week.
issue.
We're going to
News, and I really blame, unfortunately, our own. It tortures Israelis.
She's right. They all self.
I blame our own people, the Jewish people, on this because we have this beautiful and very confusing way of being, which is that everyone gets an opinion. Sometimes everyone gets two opinions. So
Democracy.
yeah, right. Well, it's more than that. It is the Jewish layer.
Only representative democracy,
Yes.
not mass democracy.
Right, exactly. Electoral college, hello. But what I'm
We're going to complain about it today on Inauguration Day.
no, thank God. I like the electoral.
Popular and electoral.
Yeah. But I do think that we have a problem within the Jewish community, which is most of us don't know the history. I'm still learning the history. I've only been learning it since I'm 24 because I went to American colleges where I did not learn it, unfortunately. And it's only gotten worse at American colleges, as you very well know, Fleur. But I think because we give everyone an opinion and we have such bleeding hearts that really do care about prisoners who are convicted. My dad himself was an expert witness, and he was a psychologist that fought for 33 years. Dad, I miss you, Oleh Shalom. Oleh Shalom. He tried to get people less sentences because he knows it's not a perfect system. But we go too far. And when you are a Jew, like Norm Finkelstein, who please come for Shabbos. Sorry. But there's so many of us that really go out of our way. So it's confusing for the world on the world stage that people look at us, and because we as Jews make that claim sometimes more important than our own history and what we are well deserving of, it gets very confusing.
Because we fight for everybody's causes more than we fight for our own cause. That's it. And I think that's what it is. And on top of that, we have this sick desire to be loved.
This is also, that's right, but this is also a problem in terms of the region we're in, because you can't behave this way in the Middle East. You're perceived as being weak. And I agree with everything you said, but I would go even further. And I don't know if you agree with me on this, but when it comes to the convicted murderers, I have here just a few of the names that are set to be released. Ahmed Barghouti, who is the cousin of Marwan Barghouti, who's an arch Palestinian terrorist. Ahmed himself was responsible for the deaths of 12 Israelis in suicide bombings and other attacks. This is just a little bit of what his experience is. We have Zakaria Zubeidi. He's known for recruiting children. Yes, he escaped in the Gilboa, and got captured. He is responsible for literally strapping bombs to Palestinian children to go commit suicide attacks. So this is a child abuser, a murderer, a terrorist. I mean, disgusting human beings. And the list goes on and on and on. All of them: murder, rape. In the case of the rapist of Ori Ansbacher, the young Israeli woman who was murdered in the forest. Yeah.
But they're
so these people,
prisoners. They're not called.
But the thing is that Israel, I argue when it comes to the life sentences, Israel is making a mistake because these people should not be alive. Correct. Israel should have implemented the death penalty. They should do it now for the Nukhba terrorists. And every single person with a life sentence should be executed today, for all I care. They've already been convicted. There's no reason that we shouldn't have the death penalty for this, because in the US, there's the death penalty and it's controversial, and people say we shouldn't decide who dies and whatever. And in principle, I agree with that. However, in Israel, people recommit. They get released in prisoner exchanges. They have some sort of deal. In some cases, they escape. And they recommit. We've seen it happen over and over and over again. And if what happened with the Gilad Shalit deal with the release of 1,027 terrorists, at least 57 of them were released. Sinwar was one of them who orchestrated October 7th. And now 1,200 people, plus all of the hundreds of soldiers who died in Gaza, are dead. And we still have 94 hostages, I believe, because we recovered the body of Oran Shul. Why? Stop letting these terrorists live. They get degrees, they get dental care, they get good health care, they get friends, they get a social life. They build networks in these prisons. Why aren't they being executed?
They need to be executed because the truth is the evidence for most of them is completely unequivocal. You can't even, there's not even like room for appeal.
They're not denying it.
And if you do, then you also lower the rate of kidnappings. And that's the bottom line. This incentivizes kidnappings.
There was a Nukhba terrorist, I think it was yesterday in the news. First of all, why the hell do we have female guards with the Nukhba terrorists? It should not be. There's no feminism, there's no whatever that's going to tell me that our women should be exposed to these monsters. So she was bringing him a blanket and he attacked her yesterday. It was in the news. I'm like, first of all, why is this guy alive? Second of all, why the hell are our girls being exposed? There's a whole other conversation to have, but I agree that there should be a death penalty for terrorism, for blood on your hands terrorism, 100%. If we don't value our own lives enough to kill the people who take us out, what are we doing?
We'll continue.
And
Explicitly.
exactly.
They say it, they do it, we have proof.
And the families are living it up because they're getting paid by the Palestinian Authority.
Exactly. They're getting, it's a double win for them.
And they become heroes when they're released. Parties. What are we doing? We're our own worst enemies when it comes to this. I'm sorry. This is wrong. There's no human rights that are going to tell me that we're doing a kind and right thing to let them live.
How many countries around the world still have the death penalty and nobody even talks about it? Why do anybody have to get involved in our business? Especially in the atmosphere.
System where they are tried and convicted with legal representation. This is done according to actual order, unlike, say, Syria, where you see giant mobs of thousands of people hanging people from poles.
It's the same thing in Gaza. They shoot people for no reason.
Yeah, right. Like, where are the NGOs in those countries, the nonprofits, screaming at the rooftops, women and children saying, exactly.
Where are the women NGOs who saw the picture yesterday of our 3 beautiful girls surrounded by monsters with guns and didn't say a word?
Nothing.
Shame on you.
Shame on you.
You know what? You're not feminist. We're the real feminists here.
And I totally agree with you, Emily, in every point that you made, which I mostly do. And yet, I also want to say I'm grateful to be part of a people and a country where Israelis who live here, Palestinian Israelis, Muslims, Christians, atheists, Hindus, and Buddhists
We don't have a lot of Hindus and Buddhists.
We have a few. We have a lot of people from Manila, though. And the Druze. Yeah, when I say that, I always think people are going to think I'm saying Jews again. Druze, D-R-U-Z-Es, that actually have a heart and say, I wish we didn't have to do this. I wish we weren't at war. I wish that, I don't want to ever stop using our humanity. But I hear you. I walk fast.
Nobody wants to be at war, and really this is the bottom line of the state of Israel. And maybe you'll all learn this one day. I know that our followers and our viewers do, but maybe it'll get out of this bubble and people will understand that we just want to be left alone to live in peace. And this week, I think it's particularly difficult to ascertain the scumbags, but we will do our very best. A perfect segment, Scumbag of the Week. Barb, let's start with you.
I have a personal Shabbat invitation that I would like to send out to...
Is the Shabbat?
I know. I'm the rehabber.
Yes, of course, sweetheart.
I'm still giving hope for that. Dave Chappelle, you were my hero for so many years. You're one of the reasons why I had the courage to write a show that I've performed in 6 countries about cancel culture and the dangers of cancel culture. However, why have you twice now in the last 4 years, chosen, well, it was 2022 and recently, you've been on SNL twice. You've had the opportunity to have one of the most prized positions in the world to appear on SNL for the opening monologue, and you snubbed Israel multiple times. And it just really hurts because I know you've publicly said, I got Jewish friends, and I get that. And I know Lauren likes you, but Lauren, under your watch, you've had this amazing comedian on your show who has snubbed Israel for supposedly displacing people, which we gotta sit down on Shabbos and have a nice long chat about what it means to be displaced and what the history of that looks like. And then also, making fun of the word Shabbat, like saying Shana Nana, and it's just, I don't understand. And Lauren, I still would love to audition for SNL, even though I know you guys have dress rehearsal on Shabbat. I would find a way because I love to do impressions. But it hurts me. Like all of my biggest idols from when I was a kid, and I believed in having idols as humans, Dana Carvey, like some of my, Rob Schneider, David Spade, like Adam Sandler. I could go on and on about all the people that are either Jew or Jew adjacent that have worked on your show that have so much talent. And you allow this on your watch. You allow him to say great things about late President Carter, and not one kind thing about Israel. I understand about balanced conversation and comedy. That's what I like to do. Let's have Shabbos together. Let's talk about this because this really makes the whole thing very scumbaggery.
It's the least of what he's done. He's had live comedy shows where Jewish people have felt so uncomfortable because of what he says about us and Israel that they've had to walk out.
I had friends at that show.
Real anti-Semitism. He converted to Islam. It doesn't mean anything. We all know some very moderate, loving Muslims. But unfortunately, he's not taken that side of it. He's taken the very, extremist, hating side of it.
And on the other side of that, there's a wonderful Jewish comedian, Israeli comedian, Yochai Spander, who's having his, I would love it. Yalla, come on. But he's having his shows canceled because they pretend, Irina's like, oh, we spoke to the police. He calls the police. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. So he goes, I wonder why okay, his accent's not that bad, but he goes, I wonder why they're actually canceling it. Ha, ha, ha. But we're going to continue to have the show. And he's wonderful. And if you need some good comedy, go see Yochai Spander.
Michael Rappaport also has had obviously Michael Roth's show is canceled. He's kind of a little bit outspoken, but still, balanced comedy. That's what comedy is supposed to be out there that doesn't bash Israel. Right.
Yes, I mean, Jewish people have a sense of humor about themselves. That's, I think, what distinguishes us from many other people. Certainly what distinguishes us from the jihadis who have zero sense of humor.
Zero sense of humor.
But we do, but it's not that. It's the demonization. So good scumbag indeed. I've been meaning to have him as a scumbag for a while, so I'm glad you brought that to us.
Come for Shabbos.
Yeah, okay, good luck. Shoshana.
Okay, my scumbag is, probably she's been a scumbag before, but she's my scumbag because she's complaining about the ceasefire. They scream about ceasefire for a long time in New York. Ceasefire now. So Nardine Kiswani, who I would like 2 seconds alone in a room with you, she wants to flood New York City for Gaza, but instead of just saying Gaza, I'm sure you'll have a real thing, but it's the whole picture of Israel. So it's not just Gaza. Like, we're not pretending anymore that this is about Gaza, right? Ceasefire, cease genocide, cease the siege, cease the blockade, cease occupation, cease apartheid, cease funding Israel, cease settler colonialization, cease land theft, cease white supremacy, cease Zionism.
She's flooding Manhattan with sewage? Because that would make it popular.
I mean, but this is a flyer.
This is after the ceasefire took effect.
Yeah.
Right. This is not about wanting to save people in Gaza. This is about wanting to finish Israel. So girl, just come out the closet. Let's have it out, you and me. I'm older than you, but I'll take you down because you are full of garbage.
I would not mess with Shoshana Keats-Jaskell if I were you.
She's
Great cow. Great scumbag short. I needed that. Emily.
And I just wanted to add to that what happened in the UK. There have been anti-Israel marches on campuses and in communities all over the world in response to the ceasefire, which is what they claimed they wanted.
Yeah, they don't know what it is.
In London, they were literally chanting. Thousands of people were chanting, "We don't want ceasefire." And then a few of the interviews I saw from the ground there in the UK, there was at least one of them who stated explicitly that he doesn't want a ceasefire. He wants Palestine to keep fighting until the end of Israel. I'm sure we can play a clip of this genius here, who of course had his face cover. Yeah.
It would be very surface level of me to say that I support the ceasefire. I don't. I want Palestinians to keep on fighting, Paul says.
But you don't want any more war?
Oh, I do.
Oh, you do?
I want Palestine to keep fighting.
Okay.
I don't want them to stop where they are now. I want them to destroy Israel.
So that's par for the course for this so-called Free Palestine movement. They're really
actually, they're finally just saying the truth. Like, yeah, let's get down to it.
Yeah, at least they're not pretending to be anti-Zionists anymore.
So my scumbag this week is the Red Cross, and they are not invited for Shabbat.
No, they're not.
You're still invited to my office. I want to work with you.
I just want to add before Emily gives us her reason that they've been repeat scumbags on this program.
Yeah. So in the last prisoner exchange, they were very heavily criticized because they basically acted as an Uber service, and they have continued that tradition of Uber service after doing nothing exactly for 15 months. They haven't given any proof of life of the hostages. They haven't had any contact with them. Despite the fact that they're working with Hamas in different ways, they haven't demanded anything. They haven't even transferred medical drugs that are needed for some of these hostages. Doron was one of them. She required a daily medication. In 15 months, they didn't give her any of this. They never transferred it, despite multiple families going to the Red Cross and saying, please take the medication, do anything to get it to my child, my husband, my whatever. So all the conduct of the Red Cross is just disgraceful. It's inexcusable. You have one job. You have one job. And if you can't do that, then get out of the game. I mean, it's ridiculous what's going on now. And I think one of the most iconic images of the prisoner, the hostage, release yesterday was the image of these mobs of Hamas and their supporters. Not all of these were, of course, Hamas. They were trying to display strength, despite the fact that they really, for the most part, been decimated, but not enough. So we have a picture of a Hamas terrorist with a gun on top of the Red Cross vehicle with the Red Cross logo on the top, and there's an image of him standing right there. I think we can show it as well. This is everything. This is what's going on in Gaza.
I think that should be their new logo. You know, let's just give a little bit of context about the Red Cross. And let's also mention that a week ago, Netanyahu met with them.
Yeah.
And they actually admitted to him, we're doing nothing and we're not going to do anything. He was like, what? The Red Cross were the same people who went to Auschwitz and said, nothing to see here, nothing's going on. This is the same organization.
I feel like Ami Horowitz needs to make another movie like he did with You and Me, like about the You and Red Cross, because we know, right, Emily? We know what's really going on. Are they really working with Hamas, or are they just saying, please stay away? Like, what do you really think is happening?
Hamas people.
They were Hamas. You know, they signed those certificates. There are Yes, there are visuals of the Red Cross people signing those fakakta, whatever graduation certificate, whatever the graduation gave to the
survived Hamas jail.
I survived the Hamas terrorists.
The Red Cross.
They signed it. Yeah.
To get our hands on that.
Yeah, you can find it all over Twitter.
Well, we're going to put it everywhere. This is what it is. Unbelievable.
With the terrorists.
Complicit.
100%.
As the UN are complicit, so are Red Cross, and a worthy scumbag indeed. Repeat scumbag here on the show. Thank you, Emily. Now, my scumbag actually talks dovetails, how do you say it? Dovetails, not dovetails on how you were describing that scene. Because to me, I mean, of course, Hamas are the biggest scumbags of the world, of the year, etc. We had them in our 10 top scumbag shows. But who decided, and this is just the element of torture that they like to embellish, who decided that it was a good idea to take these 3 women and actually do the prisoner, the exchange, the hostage exchange to the Red Cross in a sea of terrorists, gunmen shooting up in the air? That scene could have
Screaming by the way, all men.
all met. You see one woman in the audience, in the crowd there, and you think to yourself, you know, on top of everything you've done, you couldn't have given these girls the dignity of a quiet handover. You had to bring them into that mob that by miracle, honestly, anything could have happened in that last moment. You saw a Hamas gunman actually taking other gunmen and pushing them back because any wayward bullet,
At the mouth.
yes,
Yep.
they were ready for a lynch. It could have happened. That's what you do. So for me, those mobs, of course they are who we know they are, but those mobs at that moment with those 3 women who, like you said earlier, didn't know where they were going to. That to me is just honestly
Watching that live,
scumbag of
it's another form of torture. They,
course.
in every element, in every aspect, they exploit every single way to torture Israelis, Jews, and all decent people around the world. And what's astonishing to me is that those people who are still calling for, you know, intifada and this and that, like, you can't say you didn't see this.
Well,
you cannot say you didn't see this.
You can't say you didn't see this, and you can't say you're on the side of the masked terrorists. Whoever does,
Well, they are. I have no problem with that.
the innocent, unarmed women surrounded by a mob of monsters with guns, and you're standing with the monsters with the guns? Look in the mirror. This is ridiculous. But anyway, it'll eat you up in the end, as my father used to say to me. Alav shalom. Okay, so we finished with the scumbags, and this week has been particularly taxing on us. But let's finish in the positivity with heroes. And Shoshana, let's start with your hero.
Well, I think we are all in theme tonight.
We are doing it
today, I should say, yeah. Doron is my Steinbrecher, who was released, one of the released hostages. You see their faces for over a year. You know that we know them. They're our family. And as we spoke about before, watching the news and watching like everyone's on the edge of their seats. Everyone's watching. I was supposed to go with a friend of mine for her birthday. So she goes, "Don't pick me up. I'm watching news. I can't go." I'm like, I know, me too. Okay, I'll see you later. And it was just, but she survived and came out. I cannot believe the way they came out. I just can't. Like, they didn't crumple, they didn't fall apart. And people use that to say, oh, obviously they're fine. No, they're strong. Exactly. And they're not giving in to those monsters who held them and who want to make their families feel the torture of not having them and thinking that they broke them. So even if they're broken inside, you won't know it. And they're not gonna show it. And she is my heroine for not only enduring, but for walking out of there with her head held high among that mob of monsters and going and letting her family be full of joy, even if later it takes her time, and it will take her time. Yeah. It will take them all time. Lifetime. But she allowed them to have a moment of pure joy, and she's a heroine to me.
And that just piggybacking on what you just said, I think that says volumes about our people also, and also just Israeli citizens in general, who are just so ready to be in unification over this. And it really unifies us. Like, we were all thinking, I believe a lot of us were thinking, how is she going to heal from this? And I'm so glad she's home. And now what? And how can I help? And how can I give money? And how can I give psychologists and whatever to this cause? Whereas the other side seems to be celebrating death and martyrdom and prisoners being exchanged so that they can again say 10-7 again, chas v'shalom, God forbid, and all. It's unbelievable. Are you paying attention? Are you looking at both sides as we do this exchange? It's not an exchange. It's not a deal.
They're blinded with hatred. Emily.
So my hero is Romy Gonen, who was also released in the hostage release yesterday, and I know her family. I've spoken with them for, I don't remember when I first met them, not long after October 7th. I've actually been to Romy's house in northern Israel, in Kfar Vradim, spoken with her father, and I remember distinctly that her father was saying, Eitan, who's a really, really sweet guy, all her family's amazing, was so positive and so certain. We believe she's going to come home, she's going to come back, and everything's going to be okay. He showed us her room that hadn't been touched since October 7th with all her stuff that she laid out before she went to the Nova Festival. And I have to say, it's just so surreal to see someone that you followed and that you've advocated for like over a year. I mean, she's getting out and has no idea who we are. Like, she has no idea who anybody is that have advocated. She doesn't know what happened in October 7th. So it's just very, very surreal to see. But to see that my fear, my immediate response, I didn't say this, of course, but my immediate response when I saw the positivity of his family was, I mean, I hope he's right, but we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. It seemed impossible. It seemed impossible. And I am so happy to say that I was wrong. And to say that they survived this horrific time despite all odds. And I'm just so unbelievably happy for the Gonen family and for you, Romy. And I can't wait to meet you. I'm sure many, many people feel the same. And it's hard to describe in words like how surreal it was to see this. And I think the moment that broke me now we're all crying. The moment that broke me when I was actually broadcasting and reporting this was when I saw the video being shared of Eitan Gonen, Romy's father, like jumping up and down with joy.
And then crying.
Bursting into tears in a video. He hadn't even seen her yet. He just saw a video of her being transferred into the hands of the IDF. And I have goosebumps right now, the amount of emotion that you feel even watching that and knowing this family, it's difficult to put into words. And I'm beyond happy for them. I know it's a long road ahead. I know we still have to fight just as hard for every single hostage who is still there, and we will keep doing that. But right now, in this moment, for my hero, it's you, Romy.
Well, to complete the trifecta of heroes, I pick Emily Damari. And it's really interesting what you said, Emily. I think we all feel like we know them. We all feel like it's our family. I met Emily's mother, Mandy, because she's British. So she did a lot of advocacy work in the UK because the UK decided to pass ceasefire resolutions in Parliament without including the release of a British dual citizen, Emily Damari. Mandy. I met Mandy and Simona Steinbacher, Doron's mum. They know each other because their kids were living in the same place. And we had coffee here in Jerusalem. And they were both just incredible women, very calm, very their heads straight. I couldn't believe how calm they was. I was, I felt more hysterical than they were. And so Mandy went around the UK and said, what are you doing for a British citizen? Anyway, but what I loved about Emily, first of all, she seems so strong. She lost 2 fingers she got them shot, and she comes out and she goes like that. So what a badass! First of all, they put it this morning. I saw it on Instagram, and I said that should be the finger to Hamas. Let's make this the new finger for Emily.
You, I think.
Yeah,
He was also a rocker.
but it's like rock, and I think she came out with such a strength, and she was smiling. It was almost like her little revenge to Hamas. They were taking her, and she was like, And what only was discovered, I knew, but kept a secret, was that, and this was incredible that this was kept a secret because it really probably saved her life, that Emily is a border police officer, as is the rest of her family. She comes from a family of border police officers. And so when I met her mother, she said, look, this was right at the beginning, I'm not campaigning too much because if they discover that, they're going to put her in the category of the soldiers and she may never get out. And that was her fear. And thank God that it was kept discreetly. And thank God she came out like the civilian woman that she was at the time. She was in her home. She wasn't in active duty. And what a strength. And what was really lovely was that Romy Gonen said to Emily's mother, you don't understand what your daughter's meant for me in the last 15 months. In other words, it's Emily's resilience, and you could see that in her face, that has kept them all going. And so Emily Damari, you're my hero, girl. You're my hero. So that's the trifecta of the hostages that were released yesterday, to our heart's content. And we're going to change track a little bit to your hero this week.
Well, it kind of piggybacks on what you guys just said. It's like the quad, if you will, because I'm going to talk about Majid al-Shafi, the Egyptian Muslim born but converted to Christian, for making this epic documentary called Dying to Live, which is such a Jewish phrase. Like, my grandma used to say, they won't let us live, and it's true. It's a great title. There's actually a few other documentaries with that title, so make sure you look for Majid al-Shafi. I was able to see this film this week, actually, because there's so many amazing, innovative things happening here in Israel. Come and check us out. Jerusalem, Jerusalem. Or Tel Aviv, or really any city here. At FOZ, Friends of Zion Museum, my friend Daniel, thank God I met him through you, Fleur, he invited me, and it was incredible. I got to meet Majid afterwards, and there were so many beautiful images and wonderful interviews that he was able to do with people who survived October 7th. Romy's family was in it, and that's how I feel like I got to know her, because of this film. Everyone should see this film. It's done in such a beautiful, poetic way. I mean, there are some difficult images, but it's not gratuitous. It's necessary. And I was nervous because there's certain films I can't watch horror films. I can't watch very sexual content. But I loved this movie for what it stands for, and for Majid, who escaped with his life for being tortured in Egypt, present-day Egypt, because he converted to Christianity and got taken by the wrong people. And I just want to show you a little sticker that I got just to honor Tiferet, someone who was captured on October 7th and didn't make it out of the Nova Festival, unfortunately. I didn't know really her story until I saw this film either. Please watch this film. Bring it to every church, every synagogue, every mosque, everywhere in the world. Everyone should see it. It's great. It really identifies what the biggest problem is in the world, and it's done in such a beautiful way.
So Majid
He's my hero.
is your hero.
He is my hero.
Worthy indeed. And even though we have a small celebration this week, we're still praying, like we do every single week, that we bring our hostages back as soon as possible. Next week, we'll have another 4 hostages, I believe, coming home, and they're going to be releasing them for a few weeks now. So bear with us. Our hearts are with them, and we pray every single day that all of them, each one of them, will come home to their families. Thank you for watching.